Welcome to Python Basics with EJD. In this video, our focus is now on commenting in Python. Making comments is something that happens in different programming languages, or even in computational software like Python and all of those. So we get to make comments from time to time. Of course, don't forget that our integrated development environment is the Google Colab, and the folders of before you even start working, following me on this, you can actually check the description box, and then you'll see a link there that takes you to the drive where I have all the code sheets. So you can download this and, of course, open them also on Google Colab and start and work along with me. So my focus is on commenting in Python. So this is how to make comments in Python. Okay, let's look at this. First of all, introduction, right? In Python, comments are used to explain the code and to make it more understandable to other programmers who may be working on the same project or reviewing the code. A comment is a line of text that is not executed by the interpreter, and it can be used to provide information about what the code does or why it was written a certain way. In Python, there are two ways to write comments. You can have single line and multi-line comments, basically, in Python. So you want to, in writing your code or whatever it is you're doing with Python, you want to let whoever is using it, you want to make it as user-friendly as possible, right? So people, whoever is looking at the code, maybe someone who is reviewing your code or who wants to also study your code can actually know what you did somewhere and why you did it. That's why commenting is really important. So for single line comments, these are comments that are written on a single line, as the name implies, and they start with a hash character. So single line comments start with a hash character. So anything written after the hash symbol on that line is considered a comment and will not be executed by the interpreter. For instance, you can see this is a single line comment in Python, okay? Because the hash is starting it, this line will not be executed. Whereas for line 3, now I said print, the same thing. This is a single line comment in Python. First of all, I made that into a string by having it in double quotation, and then I want to print it so it outputs this result. Now, so when you run this and something comes out, it's not the first line, it's the third line, because there's instruction to print. But the first line, a comment has been put to just show that this first line is just to instruct you on what is happening in that cell. So I can run using this play button, and then it goes a bit, and then after some time, it comes out. Now it's a bit slower compared to Jupyter Notebook because it's web-based, right? We need to be on the internet to have this work for us. So this is a single line comment in Python, right? Okay. So anytime you want to write something and you put that hash in one line, then that means you're doing a single line comment. Then apart from single line comments, we also have, we can have multi-line comments where you have more than one line. So in that case, multi-line comments are comments that span multiple lines and are enclosed in triple quotes, right? In fact, I think I found out that whether it's triple quotes or double quotes or not, it doesn't matter. As far as you have something that makes it into a string, you're good to go. So anything written between the triple quotes will be considered a comment and will not be executed by the interpreter. So you see the single comment, right? You see everything is greenish, like light green, I think. But here, this is more or less like string where everything is like red. Okay, so multi-line comments are typically used to provide more detailed explanations of code or to temporarily disable blocks of code for testing purposes. So if you are testing a code, you can use multi-line comments to just quickly comment out that part of your code so you can try out other parts. Then of course, if you want more instruction, right, you can also use multi-line comments. For instance, they say this is a really long comment that can make the code look ugly and uncomfortable to read on a small screen. So it needs to be broken into multi-line strings using double quotes. So if you try to write this on one line, that would be too long, right? And with the hash, but here you can just do multiple. And just like I said before, so in this case now, if you run this cell, what the results you are getting is from line 8, where we are saying, how is the class going? That's what you want to print. But here now, this is a really long comment, blah, blah, blah. So if you run this now, Control Enter can do it, Shift Enter can do it. So it just prints how is the class going, because this is just a comment telling us, something about the cell or whatever. Okay, that's what that is really about. Now you see, this is actually like a string, but in this context, it's a string, but without a variable name. So you can't run it, you can't say do this or do that, right? So in this case too now, just like I said, you can have up there we had three quotations, but here you can actually make it only two, as far as they are the same. Oh, okay, this doesn't work, so it's only three has to work. Okay, good. So let me go back. So try to experiment anything that comes to your head, try it out, and see if it works or not. So it means what I said initially was wrong, that you can use two quotes, so it has to be three quotes by standard. So this is a really long comment again that make the code look ugly. Now you see, I'm putting this print here for a reason. So imagine if I comment out this one now, or let me even remove it altogether to avoid the confusion of double commenting, right? So if I just have this here, if I run it, it just brings out this thing that doesn't really make sense, because it's supposed to be a comment, so it's not any beautiful. But because I want to suppress that, I just do a blank print. So I think there are cases, I think in a previous video, I used blank print a lot. So blank print is just to suppress, is just to clear that printing area. So if I run this now, so you don't see anything, because this is just supposed to be a comment, basically. So in addition to everything we have learned so far about single line and multi-line printing, there are some best practices for writing comments in Python, right? The first thing is you want clear and concise single line comments explaining why you are doing something, not necessarily what you are doing. So I mean, why you are doing it will be of more use than what exactly you're doing, because the code can already probably tell us what you're doing, right? So of course this is new to you, but our focus is on anything apart from commenting for now. So later you're going to understand why we use def. Def is basically for functions. When we get to Python functions, you'll understand the use for def. So we use def to declare functions in Python. So def calculates discount, price, discount percent. So the name of this function is calculate discount, right? And then it takes variables, it takes price and discount percent as, I think, is it arguments or parameters now? And then it returns, so it follows the calculation you have here and it returns some value. But that's not our focus. Our focus is that why are you doing this? In line 2 now we have a comment, one line comment that says apply discounts only if discount percentage between 0 and 100. So if you have any discount below 0 or above 100, it doesn't work. Okay, and that's why we have line 3. So if 0 is less than or equal to discount underscore percentage less than or equal to 100, then you can return the price times 1 minus discount percent over 100. Else, then you return original price. So if the discount is below 100, below 0 or above 100, then it returns the original price, right? So in this case, if I calculate discounts, so if you want to run this function now, so you just copy this part out, this whole part, copy it out, and you pay that. What I did, I pasted it down here. Then for price, I say maybe let the price be $1,000 and the discount is 10.5%. Because it's between 0 and 100, we can have a result for that. So it means you're going to buy at 10.5 discount, so you're going to buy the whatever you're buying for $895. But what happens if I say it's 105 percent discount? So if I do that, it means it's going to return the original price, because the 105 is bigger than 100. So it returns the original 1,000. What if I want it to now be minus 10.5% discount? Same price will be returned, but if it is 10.5, it returns a discounted price. Okay, so tell us why you are doing what you're doing, not what you are doing, because the code tells us already what you're doing. That's a very nice way, a best practice when it comes to commenting, using a doc string to document a function. So imagine we want to, of course, I'm not talking about functions, define factorial. Of course, the doc string here, we're using multi-line. Calculate the factorial with non-negative number, non-negative integer n. The parameters, you have n integer, n, which is an integer. This n has to be an integer. The number to compute factorial for, and it must be greater than or equal to 0. And it returns integer factorial of n. So what it returns is an integer, which is the factorial of n. So, and this is the function. The function name is factorial n. So it means you're going to supply the value of n, and then it gives you the factorial. And from line 2 to 10 now, you have a doc string. That's a multi-line comment to tell you what exactly is happening there. So if n is equal to 0, then it returns 1. Else, it returns n times n minus 1. And it goes like that. Whatever n you supply, and then so for instance, after writing that code, you can now, run. Maybe you now need the factorial for 10. Let's do a factorial we know, like 5 factorial, which is like 720, I think. So let's do 5. So if you run this now, it just gives you, it's 120 actually. That's 5 times 4, 20, 20 times 3, 60, 60 times 2, 120. Yeah, 120 times 1 is 120, like that. Then if you do 10 factorial, it also gives you that result like that. So, but our focus is on the comment. So it's more like a string that has told you the comprehensively what is happening. So you can use a docu string to document a function. So if you're writing your own function, you can actually use that to work it out. Okay. So what about using what about multi-line comments explaining the tricky piece of logic? Okay. Say this. Def is prime. These are not, we are defining the function too. Is prime. Don't worry. We are going to have a whole video talking about functions, Python functions. So don't worry. So you understand this. So def is the keyword for defining functions, basically, before we get there. So you can know that ahead of time. So from line 2 to 4, we now have check if a number is prime. So this tells us that this function is prime, is helping to check if a number is prime. So you supply the number and tells us whether it is prime or not. Okay, so here now, if the number is less than or equal to 1, return false because it can be prime. If it's less than or equal to 1, you return false, okay? Then only check divisibility up to the square root of number to optimize performance, right? So for I in range 2, I mean, the focus is not on all of these stories now. So we have a multi-line comment here to check if a number is prime. Then you have a single line comment here, telling us what the check here is about. So it's prime num. So what it takes is this argument num. So after doing all that, you can now to check this function out, which you're going to learn later. So you just say it's prime 17. So it's more like you're asking, is 17 a prime number? If you run it, it tells you true because 17 is prime. But what if you try like 57? Okay, 57 a prime number, of course that's false. So whatever you have. So like that. So that's another best practice. Another thing you want to do is you want to use to do comments to indicate future work. So again, we have a function define fetch data and to do implement error handling for network requests. So response network request. So it's like this is telling us what that function is going to do later. If you run this, it's going to give us an error because it is going to tell us something is not defined. So I have not defined the network request, but the to do tells us what is going to happen later. So that's a to-do comment. And then you want to avoid obvious comments. So a good comment versus bad comment is what we see in the next cell, for instance. So we have a bad comment, which explains what is obvious from the code. For instance, you have I equals I plus 1. So it says increment I by 1. I mean, makes no sense. That is what I said the other time, that you should tell us why you are doing what you are doing, not what you're doing, because the code already tells us that. Then a good comment will explain why incrementing I is necessary. Incrementing I is necessary. So increment I to move to the next item in the list. Something like that should work, right? So if, for instance, I already declare an I initialize an I say I is equal to 0. That's our initialization. Then I run this now. Okay, so it's going to just print I because I equals 1 now. So 0 plus 1. Okay, so now you can see there are 2 layers here. So I is 0 here. So it comes here, 0 plus 1 is 1. Then it comes here again. So 1 comes here, 1 plus 1 now gives us 2. Okay, so tell us why you are doing what you're doing, not what you're doing, because the code tells us that. I keep emphasizing that. So in conclusion, right, commenting, you can see commenting is really, it is important to know that while comments are not executed by the interpreter, they can have an impact on the performance of the code. This is because comments are still processed by the interpreter and they take up memory and processing time. Therefore, it's best to keep comments concise and relevant to the code they are describing. In addition, comments should be written in clear and concise language using correct spelling and grammar. Comments that are difficult to read or understand can actually make the code more difficult to understand and maintain. So comments are useful, but don't use them indiscriminately. Don't waste time, using comments that are not useful, basically. Thank you for listening. This is the end of this video. If there's something you like on the trial, feel free to let me know. If you have not subscribed already, please go ahead, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you can always get alerted each time a new video is released. You can become a member of my channel by clicking on join, and then you can see different levels of membership with special privileges. So you can explore all of that, and let's get rocking together, if there's a word like that. Then of course, ultimately, don't forget to like, share, comment so that more people can have access to the great content I have going on here. Till I come your way again, keep doing Python right. Bye.